How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball. Welcome back to another transfer update for you guys, and quite a big update today. So let's get straight into it, and we're going to start off with a potential incoming to West Ham, as Fabrizio Romano says that West Ham have now opened initial talks to sign Mohammed Kudus, priority target in case Lucas Paqueta leaves to join Man City. Positive talks on player side. Kudus open to the move, still waiting to approach Ajax, as deal will depend on Lucas Paqueta. This is a strange one to me. Like, I don't know, why did the move for Kudus to Brighton fall through?
I think it was a personal issue with the club agreeing personal terms, I believe. I think it fell through.
He's open to joining West Ham, but not Brighton.
I don't know. Or maybe West Ham are prepared to pay him the wage packet he's looking for. I'm not 100% sure what happened between Brighton and Kudus, but what a brilliant signing it would be for West Ham. In terms of as replacements go, I don't think they could get much better than Kudus, and for a fraction of the price they'll be selling Paqueta for as well. Would he fit into how David Moyes wants to play? I'm sure that, upping your quality like that is always going to be something positive. I think the difference between Paqueta and Kudus is Paqueta's a bit more combative in the middle. Like, he can play a bit more like a centre mid, whereas Kudus, I think, is much more of a forward player. So where he fits in, is he going to be strictly a number 10 or a forward kind of player? I'd probably think so. So they'd probably have to bring in another midfielder as well, but they have just got Ward-Prowse. But what a signing it would be for West Ham. But I don't think for Kudus' career it's the best move if I was him.
Would you not say, like, 1 year at West Ham and he gets his big move to Man City?
Yeah, maybe, but West Ham probably want to avoid that situation. But yeah, I mean, you could see it as a stepping stone, but I think he's ready now for a bigger club than West Ham.
I agree with that. But I mean, 1 year to really get to grips with life in the Premier League, and maybe he can get a bigger move, but I expect that West Ham will want to keep on hold of him for longer. But it depends how much money they're talking about signing him for, because, if they sign him for 40, 50 million, they're going to want in excess of 100 million from him in a year. But I think that regardless of that, it's an absolutely brilliant signing for West Ham. And I've banged on about Mohammed Kudus for so long now. He was brilliant in the World Cup for Ghana. He's been brilliant for Ajax, and I think he's going to be a star in the Premier League if he joins.
He's going to be feeding off knock-ons from Antonio.
Yeah.
It's different. If I was Kudus, I wouldn't go for it. I think he's ready now. There's no need for a stepping stone move. I think.
But what if there's no moves there for him? I mean, there's Brighton.
It's weird. There was links to Arsenal. There were links to like other clubs, Chelsea. But for some reason, I think if I was him, I'll just see where the window takes me. I wouldn't agree so soon to move to West Ham.
Well, there's not long left of the window. That's the reality of it.
But I reckon there's still a lot of moves to go.
True. But in terms of Lucas Paqueta, let's talk about him now, as Sami Mokbel says that Man City to make an improved offer for Paqueta. First bid was 60 million plus 10 million in add-ons. New offer has to be in excess of 70 million plus, or likely to be rejected. Plus growing optimism that Paqueta will eventually join Man City this summer.
Yeah, and it'll be a brilliant signing. It's a big outlay. I think they're probably overpaying, but when you're trying to get a player out of a Premier League club who's only been there a year and he's their star player essentially, it's going to take a big offer to convince West Ham to sell. So I understand that offer. I do think it's a bit peculiar. Like, why don't City go for Kudus? I think that's a bit of an odd one in my opinion, but it would be a brilliant signing for Man City, and it'll just reinforce that squad, which I think needs a couple more numbers in there in my opinion.
Yeah, in terms of who to bring in for Man City, I'm not really sure where Paqueta fits in to get like a lot of minutes, to be honest. But I think if Mohammed Kudus was to sign for them, he would get minutes on the wing, he would get minutes in the middle. I mean, he's a much more versatile player, and that's what Man City like, in my opinion.
But apparently De Bruyne could be out for quite a while. I mean, I wouldn't say spend 100 million because he's out for a few months, but with Man City, I mean, you never know what they're thinking. But in terms of where he fits in, I mean, look, he can play all around the centre, and how they play, they're very versatile in how they play midfielders. Like Bernardo, like flirts into the centre, then he goes out wide. Like, I think Paqueta can suit in that kind of way.
Fair enough. Another midfielder who could be on the move is PSV's IBRAHIM Sangare, as ESPN are reporting that Liverpool, Bayern Munich and PSG are all interested in the PSV man. £32 million apparently he's going to cost, so not such a big outlay. He's a player that comes with a reputation, a big reputation of being a very good central midfield player. And with the news coming out of Liverpool today, do you reckon, well, which we'll get into in very soon, do you not think that they go and push the button for this one now?
Probably. I mean, for me, I think there's probably better value in this kind of deal than spending massive money on LAVIA or massive money on CAICEDO, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I think 32 million for a player like Sangare, who, yes, right now isn't seen on that level because he doesn't have that Premier League experience, but give him some time. Once he moves to the league, I reckon in a year's time, you might see him on that same level. So I think that, for me, offers better value if Liverpool were to go for this deal.
Yeah, I mean, there's always just that bit of unknown, isn't there? Because you've seen players like that come into the midfield, come into the Premier League before. I mean, Chelsea have made a couple. I mean, Bakayoko was one of them that had a great season at Monaco that one year. And I think there have been a few others, and they just haven't kind of come into the Premier League and done the business.
But where were Lavia and CAICEDO a year ago?
True.
You know what I mean? Say
True.
they were in the same boat, and their clubs have taken a punt on them, and look at that. So I think these bigger clubs, instead of just waiting for smaller clubs to buy them and then spending 100 million on them, just get them in early.
Yeah. Let's talk about the big transfer doing the rounds, though. That is on Neymar. And Romano says, Neymar to Al-Hilal. Here we go. After new huge bid revealed 2 days ago, documents are now approved by all parties involved. Neymar will travel to Saudi this week on a 2-year contract. PSG set to receive a bit less than the €100 million fee, but medical is set to take place today. And he's due to earn €200 million.
Absolutely bonkers. It's such a shame for Neymar. Again, it's another what if story. What if he hadn't taken the money and gone to PSG? And now, you know, maybe, I know he's 31 and people saying maybe like his career's passed him by already. I still think he's a really good player. I think even at the World Cup when he was fit and playing, we saw he's still a very, very good player. And I just think it's like, give your career one more shot in Europe and like really like cement your legacy as one of the best players of your generation. And I think this kind of tarnishes it a bit. It kind of ruins it. And as much as he was like amazing up until when he was at Barca and before that Santos, like ever since then, since he's gone to PSG, he's pretty much played like 20 games a season. Yes, he's balled it out in every game he's played, but he barely gets on the pitch. And now looks like he's going to finish his career at Al-Hilal. And I just think it's a massive shame. Like, will that tarnish like where he's seen in history in terms of like some of the greatest players? I don't know. I reckon he could have been up there, like if he would have stayed at Barca or even just been a better player at PSG, like stayed fit more often. Like I think he could have been up there in a different conversation to what he is now, unfortunately.
Yeah, at one point, you know, people were talking about him as up there with Ronaldo and Messi as the top 3 players in the world. But look, in terms of this deal specifically, there were rumours of Barcelona being in for him as well. But who can afford him? Who can afford those wages? Who can afford that transfer fee on a player of his age? Like, nobody can at the end of the day.
I don't blame him for going because of the money. The money is ridiculous. 12 million euros a month, they're saying. And look, doesn't matter who you are. I think most players will look at that money. I mean, I know Mbappe reportedly rejected a move to Saudi, but you know, most players, especially when you're 31, will look at that and think, "How can I turn that down?" So I don't blame him. But I just think when I look at now he's going to Saudi, I look back at his career as a whole, and I just think it's a massive shame that he hasn't quite. He should have been a Ballon d'Or winner, 100%, and it just we're never going to see that now. Yeah,
totally agree. Next up, let's go back to Liverpool and talk about Romeo Lavia. CBS are reporting that Southampton have accepted a £60 million bid from Liverpool for Romeo Lavia. However, another hijack from Chelsea, as David Ornstein says that Romeo Lavia has chosen to join Chelsea from Southampton. Liverpool were pursuing but are aware of the decision. Chelsea and Southampton have good relations, so no issues expected on the deal or personal terms. Fee likely to be around 50 million plus add-ons, and that's pounds. So another midfielder coming into Liverpool. We'll get into the first one a bit later on in the video, but Liverpool, they just can't seem to get a midfielder over the line. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's mad. Every target's getting gobbled up, and especially with Chelsea as well. So they must be sick of the sight of Chelsea entering negotiations with their players, because they know they just need one final piece of the puzzle, and like every step of the way they just keep getting bypassed. It must be very, very frustrating. But in terms of Chelsea, I know people thinking CAICEDO for 100 million, Lavia for 50 million, like why are they signing all these players? But if you look at their depth in centre mid, they needed it. They needed these centre mid, so it doesn't surprise me too much they're going all out. And I think it really sets them up for the future. With I think Lavia is a brilliant player, and also he comes in with not too much pressure on him immediately because they're getting other players as well in that area. So I think it's a smart piece of business for Chelsea. I think he's going to go on to be a star, and it's more frustration for Liverpool.
Next up, Jack Harrison, an official announcement as Everton have signed midfielder Jack Harrison on a season-long loan from Leeds. Look, it's a fairly good signing for Everton. I think he's a good player, and he'll definitely add quality to that squad. But I don't think it goes, signing Jack Harrison and say, oh, we're safe from relegation now. That's not the case.
No, but I think he adds good depth in the wide areas. All of a sudden, look at their wingers. They've got Danjuma there. They've got Harrison. They were looking at Nonta. I don't know if he's come through the door. I mean, I know that last season they got like Gray. I know McNeil's injured as well, but I think it's definitely an upgrade in the wide areas. And that's, I think Sean Dyche appreciates good deliveries from wide areas, and he needs good wingers in his squad. So I think it represents a good deal for Everton. I think it represents adding quality to the wide areas. But you look at their attack, and even though you're adding Harrison into it, it still definitely looks lacking when you compare it to a lot of other Premier League teams. But I think it's a step in the right direction, at least.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't fill me with confidence that that's gonna, they're still gonna stay up or anything like that. I think it just adds one more good player, which they desperately needed. Let's be honest. But let's move on and let's talk about KEPA. Another official announcement. Real Madrid have signed Chelsea goalkeeper Kepa Arrizabalaga on a season-long loan deal. And this one, I mean, it makes sense in essentially because Real Madrid are desperate for a keeper in terms of the Courtois doing his ACL. But I mean, when you're Kepa, a year ago, or when he was just about getting back into the Chelsea team, to say he's going to be playing Real Madrid's #1 the season after, he must be pinching himself right now.
I've never seen a bigger example of failing upwards in my life. It's incredible. How the hell has he gone from being a bit part keeper at Chelsea? How many managers has he played under? Not one of them has been convinced by him at all in the Chelsea goal. I actually don't think he's a terrible keeper, but I just don't think he's Real Madrid standard. But at the end of the day, they know he's not a long-term keeper for them. He's not only a stopgap while Courtois' recovery from his ACL. And when you're looking for stopgaps, you could do a lot worse than Kepa. So from that point, it makes sense. But I think for him, it's an unbelievable move. And imagine he goes there and just plays amazing. All of a sudden, he could be their #1 keeper for a while. And that would be an amazing turn of events if that was to happen. But I think he's incredibly fortunate to be in the situation he's in.
Yeah, and funnily enough, he had Real Madrid and Bayern Munich fighting over him at one stage.
Because both clubs are looking for stopgaps.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
It's mad. It really is mad.
But from Chelsea's point of view, I mean, I thought they were getting Sanchez just as cover, but now he's going to be their #1. And I'm like, is that really a great #1? I don't know.
He's gone from Brighton's sub-keeper to Chelsea's #1.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
Yeah, very odd.
I don't know if Sanchez is good enough to be their #1, but we'll see.
Next up, let's talk about Moises Caicedo, another player going from Brighton to Chelsea. Romano says that Moises Caicedo has completed the main part of his medical test, started at 9 a.m. UK time. Now time to sign the contract as a new Chelsea player until June 2031 with an option to extend for a further year. And I think this signing is going to be a really good signing for Chelsea. I think it's exactly what they kind of need in their midfield. But I'm looking at their midfield options, and there's not many kind of midfielders with any attacking intent.
Well, they've got I know Nkunku's injured, but they've got Chukwuemeka, they've got Gallagher. These are players who can go forward. I mean, and they're not maybe, on the level of some of the players that maybe they're competing with, some of the rivals in their attacking mid, but there's still some attacking players there. I think he's a quality signing. I think 150 million is an absolutely ridiculous fee. And I know he's a good player, but I think to spend that kind of money, I think it's madness. I really do think it's madness. And I think Brighton have done an absolute blinder to get that kind of fee for Caicedo, despite him being a very good player. I think he improves the midfield. I think he's obviously one of those midfielders that he's absolutely everywhere, but he also got underrated technical ability as well. He's really good on the ball with his progressive passes and his vision as well. So I think he's going to be a fantastic box-to-box midfielder. I think he could even be potentially a replacement for Kante as well, the way he plays, and maybe even better on the ball than Kante was. So I think it's a really, really good signing, and you look at their midfield now, and yes, there's not much attacking, but I think they're good all-round players, all of them. I think they're very good defensively and they're very good on the ball. So I think there's a lot for Poch to work with.
Back to my point before about the attacking intent from the midfielders, when Nkunku comes back and Poch probably goes back to the 4-2-3-1. I mean, having those players sitting, Caicedo and Enzo with Nkunku as in the number 10, how do you think that stacks up in the Premier League now?
I think very highly,
yeah.
Especially, for sure. I think you look at those three, you're like, that is, especially when I think it's only going to get better as well. I think Enzo and Caicedo, you're still very, very young. and I think they're still like yet to hit their peak. And once they do, that is going to be a very scary midfield three.
Yeah, and as with Lavia backing them up as well. Unbelievable options. But let's talk about the last story of the update, and it goes to Leandro Paredes, who is joining Roma, as Romano says that Paredes to Roma. Here we go. Deal agreed in a fee in excess of €4 million to Paris Saint-Germain. PSG and Roma have just reached the final agreement. Leandro will now travel to Italy, contract until 2025, with an option to extend to 2026. Jose Mourinho has finally got his man.
I think Mourinho will love him as well. He's such a Mourinho kind of player. He loves a shit house. He absolutely loves getting under the skin of the opponents. And I think being a warrior under Mourinho, I think Paredes is going to absolutely shine, in my opinion. And he has good technical ability. I think he fits right in that Roma midfield as well. I think it's a great signing for Mourinho.
Yeah, and he's going to replace Nemanja Matic there as well. So very good signing for Jose Mourinho and Roma. But that is your transfer update for today. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts regarding all these stories today, and we'll see you next time.